there, Agile Adventurer. Just a quick question. What if, for the price of a fancy coffee or half a pizza, you could unlock over 700 hours of the best Agile content on the planet? That's audio, video, e-courses, books, presentations, all that you can think of. But you can also join live calls with world-class practitioners and hang out in a flame war-free and AI slop-clean Slack with the sharpest minds in the game. Oh, and yes, you get direct access to me, Vasco, your Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. No, this is not a drill. It's the Scrum Master Toolbox membership. And it's your unfair advantage in the Agile world. So if you want to know more, go check out scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. That's scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. And check out all the goodies we have for you. Do it now. But if you're not doing it now, let's listen to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special bonus episode. And for this bonus episode, I have joining me Mario Aiello. Hey, Mario, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vasco, how are you doing? Glad to, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here with you, sharing my thoughts.
Absolutely. So Mario is now full-time retired
yes.
and also an agility thinker shaped by real-world complexity, not dogma. With decades of experience in VUCA environments, he blends strategic clarity, emotional intelligence, and creative resilience. He designs context-driven agility, guiding teams and leaders beyond frameworks towards genuine value, adaptive systems, and meaningful transformations. Now, Mario, before Agile was even called Agile, you were already experimenting with different iterative approaches. So can you take us back to those early days,
Yeah.
What drew you into this way of working? How did you first try to agilize the world around you?
Yeah. Listen, look, I mean, I came from the project management world, right? In the days I used to work for Sun Microsystems. For a lot of you young guys, you may not remember what that company was all about, but we built hardware anyway. And I came from project management, and project management was, in my eyes, was not working. Okay, and it was working as a way of doing things, but the results were never there. You feared change, all that kind of stuff. That once you get a real project success, you were a bit of a hero. So that's sort of, started, making me think. And I used to go out to work in Palo Alto for a while, and with Sun, that was Sun's headquarters. And I met some of the early guys there, and started hearing about Agile, or some of the concepts. It was mostly, in those days, I was looking more at extreme programming and anything else, concepts. And I had that little bit of a aha moment. I said, okay, if we do some of this stuff, bring into project management, maybe, we can find some sense. Now, like small batch work, iterations, feedback, learn, adapt, that kind of stuff. So I thought, that's cool. I mean, why not use it? So I started using that in my project management approach. And within the teams I was managing, I started what I did. In the days, I had no other word to call it, a simple agile, right? Which was saying to people, look, work on the most important thing, right? Work on one thing at a time, most important first, and finish it, and then move on to the next one and get feedback. And that kind of simpleness. Just don't hesitate and cooperate with each other, ask each other, and give feedback. And look and improve those simple mechanisms. Right? I started putting into my team, so I was not getting. Agile in those days still wasn't a buzzword or anything, but it's like those things. So with people, and then I used to be an advocate of Prince 2 in the days, right? And when in Prince 2, when we had the stages, I started calling them iterations more than stages, and trying to make them as short as possible. So trying to feed into the existing system some of the ways of my new ways of working. And it proved to be pretty good it was, and I started liking it. So that's how I started.
That sounds like something that would feel very familiar to anyone with a project management background and training. At least for me, it does sound very interesting. When I started looking into Agile, I was a bit of a skeptic. I was a project manager, years of experience and so on with project management. And I was a bit of a skeptic when it came to Scrum. I hadn't heard too much about extreme programming at the time. When you started hearing about this, let's call them experimenters trying out things like extreme programming, weren't you also a bit of a skeptic?
Well, how would I say? There was one truth I had in front of me. That was the traditional project management wasn't working. For me, what I was living on traditional project management was just utter stress, and I became a wishful liar, right? Because I used to, manipulate reports in such a way that will please the listener. If they were bullshit, basically. I knew it was bullshit. I was getting bullshit. So I says, how long is somebody going to keep on this way of working? Where you're going towards a no result, where change was the unsayable word, and whenever you had to change, it was like cutting your veins. And I thought, that can't be the way of working. That's not a sustainable way of working. So, yeah, I mean, I was a bit skeptical, but anything that took me away from the madness that we were handling was good enough,
So I totally sympathize with this. I remember once in a project approval discussion showing a beautiful schedule, right on time, all of that. And then it had the phrase underneath saying, this will only hold if nothing fails. Exactly. And of course, when was the last time that nothing failed in a software project?
There we go.
So, and you've seen also like these multiple waves of Agile adoption. You didn't say the year when you were kind of discovering about extreme programming. I can only imagine it was either late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, it was about, I joined Sun Microsystems in 99. So that was about, 2001, something like that it could have been.
Yeah. So you've seen these multiple waves of Agile adoption from early, almost underground days like extreme programming. Yeah. To all the way to big bang scaling programs, to where we are now, where you've collected so much experience and are sharing it now with the world. How would you describe this trajectory, right? Like what it was, what it became when you were there actively participating through your career?
Well, look, Agile as a software development, new software development approach was great. I think the people that came out with the manifesto, that's what they were. They needed new ways of working because they were software developers. Let's face it, and they were speaking from the heart, and they was trying to say something that it was needed, really. Okay, and the big win of that manifesto is that putting the truth right in front of you. Now, from there, then I believe that when the craze of methodologies came about, right? And when I say the craze of methodologies, I started thinking about the commercialization and monetization of methodologies and how can we do. That's where things started to get a little bit complicated because the general focus drifted. Okay, from values and principles, that's what was documented, and say, guys, adhere to these and use this on your work, and you'll see how things change, and how things can evolve. It went into mechanisms and metrics, and then
can you explain that a little bit for those that are listening to us? Can you explain exactly what you mean by this contrast between principles and values and mechanisms and metrics?
Okay. Now, if you look at, when you look at the Agile values, right, of people over process and negotiating contracts and delivering software. If you start, for example, using those and saying, okay, I'm going to look at 4. I don't know. I tell the truth, I don't know in my heart anyway. But anyway, if you start looking at each one of them and say, how do each one of them this makes sense to me or my environment and my company, and you see how can you could be right on the spot, right? You can be far away. Anyway, but that gives you the gap analysis of where you would like to be and where you are, and gives you already a frame to work on, right? Okay. And the same with the 12 principles. Can I do this? Can all these down go from 1 to 12 and ask, can this be done? Can this not be done? And you'll find that you get a map that is completely not uniform, right? Some things are really cool and you're already doing it. Some other things are completely, whoa, what is this all about, right? But then you start trying to make sense out of those values and those principles and try to apply them or try to get as close to them as possible. Now, that's not a methodology. That is not metrics. That's not, you're trying to make sense of what those new ways of working mean and how do they map to your experience as an individual, as a team, as an organization.
Why do you believe that for the practitioners out there today? What lessons, maybe you have a story to share, but what kind of crystallized for you the importance to really focus on the values and principles instead of spending all of our time and effort on the metrics and mechanics?
Well, because one is leading you, the metrics and mechanics leads you to just doing something without a real purpose, right? Or just because it has to be done, needs to be done. The other one gives you the purpose of how am I going to change and how am I going to change my attitudes, how am I going to change the ways of working in order to deliver things more quality, I don't know, make it cheaper, whatever you want, you see. That is the difference. When you start focusing on just how to do something, then agile became a noun, okay? And that is when people were trying to be agile instead of aiming for achieving agility, you see. That is the difference, what I feel. And that's where I feel that all these methodologies, which I'm not saying they are bad. Hang on. I'm not saying Scrum is bad. I'm not saying HP was bad. HP never got to be the main drift, right? But I'm not saying safe is wrong. I'm not saying less. Kanban, I'm not saying they're wrong. It's the approach to how they're used mindlessly and without the essence of what's behind it that is.
So if I get you right, like we started with this idea of early adopters who were, of course, they only had values and principles because there were no processes. I mean, even XP, the process was very high level.
Yeah.
They called them iterations, but it was a very high level, even less detailed than what Scrum is today, which is perhaps the less detailed of all of the methodologies out there. And then it became kind of transition to more mainstream, and that led to kind of the commercialization of specific methodologies, which kind of take people away from the values and principles. So that's, I guess, your point of where we are today, right? Like that we have perhaps forgotten or spent too little time thinking about the impact that those values and principles could have in how we apply each of the specific methodologies.
Correct. That's what I mean. And then imagine that then when methodologies are given to people in general follow what's been given to them, without saying, hang on a minute, how does this make sense? How does this tie in? Because something may tie into your ways of working or into your context. Something may not tie into your context. Now, then the next question is, if it ties in, great, do it, and take it as far as you first obstacle, and then you try to figure it out. But if it doesn't tie into your context, what can I change? Can I change the context? Can I change the methodology? Because, come on, the methodologies are not sacrosanct. They can be changed. I can change Scrum any day I want, and use it the way I want. If I give you a hammer to hammer, you can hammer from literally 4 sides. The 2 sides of the hammer and the 2 lateral sides. Nothing is going to stop you how you're going to use your hammer, okay? So that's what I'm saying. Is that sense-making that is not, I want to say taught, but is not encouraged. It's just blind going and doing.
Okay, but that's where we are today. But now you have a lot of experience. You've been in the industry for many years. You've been looking at Agile and applying Agile for many years as well. Where do you think we're headed next? What do you expect will happen to software development and Agile software development specifically next?
Well, what I would think is the seeds that been grounded, right? The values and the principles will remain because they are very valuable. Is how what I do and what I invite people is to make sense out of it, and that's why now these days I'm using a lot of adaptive intelligence to take through things, which is like probe, you know, learn and adapt. You see that sequence will take people places because what is your problem really? And agile for me is something has to be fit for purpose. It has to be fit for context. It has to be fit for practice. And I even include a fourth dimension will be fit for improvement. Okay, which I'm saying, if there's a why do I want agile, right? Already it's a good thing. If you can answer that question, it's great. Then you say, well, what's my context? Where do I live? Where's my, my company? How do we work? And then making sense out of that and trying to see that agile that I want because of my goal, can it fit our context? And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, how can we make it fitable, both the context and the methodologies and agile, the principles, and only then afterwards choose a methodology. Okay, are we in a very complex environment? What we do, that maybe Scrum is good because it is, for me, it is a methodology for dealing with complexity. Maybe if you're most like, we do complicated or obvious work, maybe Scrum where flow is just, I don't know, you create your own maybe. Because obviously, after you started understanding the principles and values of Agile, you're free to create your own stuff, which is basically plan, do, inspect.
Exactly.
That's what you do.
And you got to this kind of understanding and of course, perspective based on many of the stories that you went through. I mean, when we were prepping this interview, you said, I've failed more often than I've won. And this is very important because I think that the recognition of that is also what sets us up for learning, for that inspection and learning process. So can you share a few moments where failure taught you more than success ever could and eventually shaped your approach as a coach?
Oh, indeed. I remember one of because I went through three phases basically of my agile life. First I started discovering and thought, how can I apply it to make to soothe my project management wounds and put balm into my soul, right? Then I went to do Scrum was a very obvious thing. So I went into Scrum Mastering a bit just to understand it more, stuff like that, and then started basically consulting afterwards, right? So yeah, I remember working for this for the startup. They wanted to obviously. They wanted to optimize their delivery, and they were using Scrum, so they thought, whatever it is. So anyway, we're trying to agilize the whole organization, but the environment, the context was very, very, very much a command and control stuff, right? As a matter of fact, the CEO was probably to say, he liked, Prince 2 a lot, and it just was handy because I used to practice Prince 2 a lot, and they said, well, what we're going to do here? So I thought, well, if we're going to, it's a really hard battle because that context was not agile friendly. So we started, say, well, what can I do? Why did I quit my job? So I said, okay, let's agilize Prince 2, basically, and then we tried to sell it that way. It was not optimum. It was not there at all, but, we took it as far as we could. Okay. Then I didn't call that an ultimate success. It was just winning a battle, not the war, right? But then when I moved on to my next gig, I thought, oh man, context is paramount. Okay. So I thought culture you cannot change it up front. But it's there. It's something you cannot ignore how things are done today. So start by that. Then you can see, is it good? Is it ugly? Or is it bad? Is it ugly? The good, the bad, and the ugly. If it's good, keep on doing it. If it's bad, try to improve it. And if it's ugly, up to the measure possible, eradicate it. Okay. So that approach changed completely I said, next time I go around doing something, I'll better take care of that before we. And I did, because I joined soon after an organization which was about 300 people strong, and they wanted to. They wanted Scrum for Agility was something that was decided, and that was a bet. There was no really a good organizational delivery system. That was the ugly, and it was a command and control thing, right? So started by how would I say, I started first with my simple agile, practices, blending it into Scrum, and then taking a systems approach to the whole delivery system.
When you say systems approach, can you tell us a little bit more? Like what would you call, like in a software development environment specifically, what would you ask us to consider as part of that, overall system? How would you define it?
Well, in order a delivery system, in order to deliver, you have somewhere where ideas are brought into being, right? That something that needs to be done. Then you have a whatever architectural design phase or whatever, building the product, basically conceiving the product, then building the product, and then delivering the product. And when those things are distinct and separate, that's that kind of like silo approach. That's when trouble starts creeping in. So what I meant to do here is I'm saying to explain to people that from the moment those sales and marketing people that went out there and got these brilliant ideas and want to sell them, want them built, until the team that is delivering them and put them into production and make them live and supporting them, all that is a system. You cannot be different parts. And that's why I started to say to people, you cannot be acting as you were in different people and stuff like that, and then finger pointing. So we started creating value streams, understanding things, how they work from conception to delivery, from idea to cash, if you want, right? And that changed already radically, because we had to first organize ourselves a bit around it before we started talking about Scrum or anything, And that was a bit of a difference, because then I had people stepping back a bit. We even organized the whole sitting floor, because managers were not talking to each other, and people. So we, instead of putting into little silos, like here is sales, and here's marketing, and here's security, and here's development, and there's operations, we started going, what are the value streams you got? Because we had different products. So by product, everybody sat together, and literally the whole floor was reorganized. It all changed.
So what you're saying is, when we think about systems, very often, and maybe that's my weakness there, but very often people think about the actual software development work, right? Like, how do we get things prioritized? How do we define those things? How do we get them delivered and tested? How do we get, all of that? But what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is that actually you need to consider the system as everything that influences that smaller, concentric, perhaps even system, which is software delivery.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, look backwards. When you're going to deliver value, okay, value, there's a value chain. And value, the goodness of what we're going to deliver is not the business only of the developers and the testers. Everybody in that value stream, in that subsystem, if you want, is responsible for value in different ways, in different contexts. If people are selling to the outside world a concept that is not right, is no good for what the client needs, no matter how much goodness you put in your value stream, you're going to deliver something that is not usable by the client. So you cannot look at, the development was wrong, the testing was wrong, the product. No, it's the whole. From the moment, from idea to cash, all the people where work happens with, all kinds of work. Work is not coding. Work is not testing. Work is product design. Work is, good requirements, understanding the client, all that. And that is when I started acting to people is, we're not here to see who to do it right, everybody had to. For example, I'll put you an example. In this case, security was very important. And when I joined the company, the security were like the guardians of goodness, right? They stood at the end of the line, and they went up or down, right? Okay. I said, no, they're wrong. If security is paramount, you guys should be at the beginning of the chain, building security from day one. So
exactly.
we literally shift them, not taking their importance out of them, because if that was important, anybody was in that department was important. But I said, okay, you're going to be here at the beginning, and you're going to start putting your people, your strategic people, all around the chain. So security is looked upon from the conception all the way to product development, all the way to software development, and it changed completely. Not the importance of the people, the way people acted. So you see, and at all this moment, we're not talking about Scrum yet, okay? And that's how they started. They started everybody, about 300 people get trained in Scrum. Come on. I said, you know what I mean? So, and that is the difference between starting with a methodology and started to making sense of what Agile is standing for, its purpose, context, and then practice. So it took us nearly, I would say, 5 months nearly to start talking about Scrum while we were putting together everything else.
So of course, you're like with these stories, you're also talking about how your perspective, your own personal perspective changed over the years. You had these obstacles, you tried to apply Agile, you had that project management background, and you had to think beyond what is, let's call it, an Agile coach. So in your view, when you think about your own perspective, your own progress as a Scrum Master, as an Agile coach, how did that change? How did your perspective as an Agile coach regarding yourself and your own work changed over these years?
Well, I don't think I have the magic wand, to tell the truth, Vasco. But I also knew that as a coach, and I dreaded this because, you see, I don't qualify as a coach because I don't have coaching qualifications, right? Regardless if it's Agile or anything, or life coach or whatever coach, okay? I just did because of the understanding, and I drew my coaching experience, if you want, in inverted commas, because I've been a rugby player all my life. I've been coaching also teams, So I thought, and what do you do when you coach? It's basically understand where establish first a relationship with your teams, understand where they're going, and try to help them, make sense the way they're going to go, keep on moving forward. So, that's why for me adaptive intelligence is big, because you have to sense first, in order to understand the context where teams evolve, and then see what the behaviors are and challenge them. One at a time, most important first. Don't try to go and tip the boat completely and get everybody drowned. Now you have to go, bit by bit, and then encourage every one of those challenges, every one of those maybe micro changes into being adapted, okay, and adopted and adapted. Sorry, and probe how they work. Are they working well for us, or we're not, right? So you have to do that quite fast. And if it do work, keep on doing it. If it doesn't work, change it. And then rinse and repeat. And that is what my essence of and again, this is how I approach coaching. Because I am not a coach. I'm just somebody that was, during the years, I've seen a lot and tried to make sense out of what's going on. And you cannot force people what to do. You have to bounce ideas or whatever. Go ahead, try it, Give it a try. Try it quickly, okay? Don't wait for it much. Learn and move. So that is how I see it.
I really like how you bring this perspective, even though, of course, you had a project management background, which is, there are many good things in project management, but one of the expectations we have over project managers is that they know who needs to do what by when, because that's the definition of the job. But with the coaching approach that you now talk about, it's actually completely different, because you need to understand the context and what is the goal that they are trying to achieve, and then focus on how the team interacts, how the stakeholders and the team interact, so that they can sort out who needs to do what by when, because we are in a complex environment. Software is not, in other words, it's not plannable in detail in advance like project management asks us to do with software development.
Exactly. Well, I would say, going back to this, and I'm not saying anything about project management, right? Because project management here will give you a good way to guide us into how we're going to organize ourselves, right? But when I was saying to somebody once, said, listen, look, if you have in front of you your 5 most important tasks, you do one thing at a time, most important first, and finish it, then you're going to have to pull the next one, okay? That is planning at the most simple form. That is planning. Now, what you do in traditional planning, when I see you guys get into your planning sessions according to Scrum, the planning ceremony, you want to fit a whole bunch of things into something that is not fittable, and you just want to, and you spend time arguing about it. You spend time, trying to see how long it's going to take. And it's like there's no sense, because you're trying to do something that is not really doable. So then I'm saying Agile for me is not prescriptive, and I feel that that's the way it's been put. It's prescriptive. For me, Agile is adaptive.
So talking about prescription, there's a very important topic. I don't know if you want to go there, but I will, just in case. And that's the topic of certifications. Where do you come down on the?
Coming that way.
Yeah. How do you come down on the certification debate? Like from your perspective and in your experience, what have you learned so that you can share with our audience, many of which are just now starting their Agile journey?
Correct. Yeah, indeed. Let me first be clear on one thing. I do have certifications, right? I did once upon a time. Now, the reason I did them was, not only because the company I was working for was paying for them, but that was the easy part. But it's true, I wanted to see what was going on, and because I wanted to probe methodologies and learn to adapt them to my needs, right? That was basically what it was. And then it was also a means of networking, also getting in touch with some of the thought leaders around and stuff around. So, but all seeking to be a better practitioner, right? Then, for the past decade, I would say, and still standing this today, certifications as they are presented today is about having read the book or having attended the classroom and what has been said in a course, right? Only once in my career, I saw something different, right? And that was, you come and join a course for 5 days, then you go, and you're not going to get certification yet. You go, you practice it for at least 6 months, develop a case, and you put the case in front of a panel, and you defend that case. For success or for failure. When we're talking, we're not, then, only then we'll decide if we'll certify you. Now I said, now that's brilliant, because it was so close to what I did at university. I was spending about 4 years studying, then going for a master's, and then writing my thesis about some topic that I wanted that related to my field of studies, and then trying to make sure to these people defend it, which, for good or for bad, it meant you understand and you're mastering your subject. Hence, you get a degree. That's only once in my life I've seen that. All the rest, you just go there.
It's an Agile certification, Mario?
Sorry?
Was that an Agile certification?
Oh, that was a Kanban coaching professional, as a matter of fact. Okay, so and I always thanked David Anderson, because I did it with him. And I said to him, David, I think now it's the only one that created a little bit of a university. But again, it's going a little bit commercial these days. But again, that's
Yeah. So, well,
It's
the
fair.
reason why I ask is that, ironically, I know that in the PMI case, Project Management Institute, this is not the case. But when I completed my project management certification many years ago, it was by IPMA, the International
Yeah,
Project
yeah, yeah.
Management Association, which is European based, in fact,
Yep.
Switzerland based.
Well, I did preach too with them. Yeah.
Federation of project management associations, and they did that kind of approach where you first did. I think it was even 6 months of training, but
Yep.
not every day, right? Like it was like every second week or something. You had some topic. Then you did a 4-hour written exam.
Yeah.
Then you did a case study, and then you defended the case study with the panel. And of course, what we are trying to look here, and IPMA does have these different levels of accreditation, so that it's not just one level, which is one of the problems with the current levels of certifications in Agile.
Yep.
But the point was that they really put effort, meaning the people who were giving out the certifications, they really put effort into the certification process, and and perhaps the difference here is that it was not a mass product. It was a product for specific professionals who had specific targets in their life. Now, with Agile, we have a challenge. We need to train everybody, meaning literally 100% of the people in software development today, in different ways of delivering software, because most people get out of university without any knowledge of Agile, and perhaps completely indoctrinated in the waterfall-like ideas of having things done separately by different people and then cascading down to the final person in the chain, which typically is the quality engineer, for example. So how do you see the role of certifications in Agile in that context, the context that we are actually bringing something completely new to the world?
Well, certifications, I'm not saying they're bad, okay? I'm not saying they're bad at all because, you know, it's a first stepping stone, if you want. You're saying it, a first stepping stone, a one level, a second level, or whatever you go. If you put sort of like a learning path, okay, then it starts to make it a bit more sense. But when you're just dishing out certifications and badges that people put around into the LinkedIn profiles and stuff like that, and I said, how much? I asked the question, how many times have you burned your fingers? How many times have you learned? Because that's what teaches you. I'm sorry. What teaches you is that, being brave enough to say, I failed, I learned, I move on because I'm going to next time use it better and better and better. That's what I'm saying. Is that regard, that's lack of regard to what there really is. And in many of the certifications that I went and I've seen around, and courses that sometimes I attend just to be the fly in the wall, right? Is that a lot of the bigger part of the certification program is based on the mechanisms. Very little is said about the basics, the real, what happens in the case of Agile, the Agile values and practice and principles, maybe they've mentioned on the first quarter of day one, perhaps, okay, a little bit. All the rest is, the ceremonies, which I dread. Okay, the word ceremony is something that I don't like very much. But that and how you go about things about velocity and burnout charge, and then you have how much you do your planning and this, all the mechanisms which are, anybody of us is intelligent enough that has been around in any kind of project to know that you have to plan first, at least give yourself a shot and knowing what to do within the next couple of days or month. Do it and show it to somebody. I mean, so that's obvious. Now, the principles and values are not that obvious, and you need to look at them. And that is what I criticize to it. That is, certification is a good way to make quick, fast buck, And all of a sudden, a young Scrum Master goes there and goes, oh, I got Scrum Master certifications. Yeah, how many sprints have you ever done? Oh, nothing. I'll look at it. How can you give somebody like that a certification if they've never had done a sprint in his life? That's what I'm saying. Maybe you have to say, if you want a Scrum Master certification, you must have done, for example, over a document that you've managed about 200 or 300 sprints. Then come back and to discuss.
Well, at least people should listen to this podcast, because we already have more than 600 lifetimes of Scrum Master experience collected in interviews right here. And with this episode, thank you, Mario, for being with us. We collected another few decades of experience for you. Mario, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being here and sharing all of these lessons with our audience. Before we go, though, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Well, first of all, I'm obviously in LinkedIn, although I'm not a big participant. I'm not writing it, but my profile is in LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, and you go under Mario Aiello, one word, MarioAiello. Then I have a blog. That's where I started putting some. I'm trying to reinvent myself a bit as a writer, and that is Agile Ways, in one word, agileways.blog. And then now I will hopefully be starting a Substack that is going to be called Adaptive Ways. Substack is going to be launched tomorrow, as a matter of fact, I think.
Tomorrow, at the time of recording, for those of you listening, the link is already in the show notes, and a few articles are already there waiting for you. All of these links for Mario's contacts will also be available on the show notes, so make sure to check them out and get in touch, interact, and learn from each other. Mario, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much, mate. It's a pleasure to have been here, and thank you for the invite.
All right, I hope you liked this episode. But before you hit next episode, here's the deal. This podcast is powered by people like you, the members who wanted more than just inspiration. They wanted real tools and real connection to people who are practicing Agile every day. We're talking access to over 700 hours of Agile Gold, CTO level strategy talks, summit keynotes, live workshops, e-courses, deep dive interviews, books, and if you're into No Estimates, we got the pioneers of No Estimates in those deep dive interviews as well. Agile business intelligence, creating product visions, coaching your product owner courses, you name it. You'll get invites to monthly live Q&As with Agile pioneers and practitioners, plus a private Slack community, which is free of all of that AI slop you see everywhere, and of course, without the flame wars. It's a community of practitioners that want to learn and thrive together. It's the best place to connect with community and learn together. So if this podcast has helped you before, imagine what you will get from this podcast membership. So head on over to scrummastertoolbox.org/membership and join the community that's shaping the future of Agile. And we have so much for you. So check out all the details at scrummastertoolbox.org/membership, because listening is great, it's important, but doing it together, that's next level. I'll see you in the community Slack. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.